It's been more than 300 days since Ohio started vaccinating people for COVID. Today, 52% of Ohioans are fully vaccinated. 56% started their first dose. And as a state, we rank 29th in the country in doses administered. Is this where you thought we'd be at this time?
Unfortunately, no. What's different now than in December of 2020, in our country, we have given over 450 million doses of these vaccines. And unlike any other vaccine in the history of vaccines, there are mechanisms looking for safety concerns. And we know about three very rare adverse reactions. Where I thought we would be was earlier on when we started vaccinating people, we had very motivated people wanting to get vaccinated. We got through those people, and there were narratives beginning to pop up, specifically in the anti-vaccine community, people trying to make an understanding on a very complicated discussion. Talking about vaccines, immunity, immunology is full of a detailed conversation. There's no absolutes, it's full of caveats, and people are trying to make sense of something that's very complicated. And in trying to do that, people will go online, they'll try to come to an understanding of something that oftentimes is not factually correct.
Hey, from the pediatric perspective, I think we're ahead of schedule, or right where we thought we would be, as these trials have continued in younger age groups, and the emergency use authorization has been expanded to those now down to age 5, which is really encouraging. We're seeing a lot of motivation by parents to have their children vaccinated now that they have this new tool that hasn't been available to them, and we have a lot of eager parents to do it. The question is, how many children will be in that category, and how many do we have to continue to have conversations with other parents about the benefits and the risks of the vaccine, so that we can continue to vaccinate as many children and adults as we can. That's really the way that we get to immunity in our communities.
You know, I was looking at the Ohio Department of Health website yesterday at Franklin County and Delaware County in particular, and now that the vaccine is available for children, if you look at ages 12 and over, the vaccine rate, at least starting, is in the 70 percentile, 80 percentile range. So I think that's encouraging, at least for central Ohio, that the rates of immunization are improving. There are other areas. Holmes County is the least, I think, in Ohio, because of their demographic. But I'm encouraged that we're moving in the right direction for vaccine. I would love to see everyone in line to get their first shot rather than their third shot, but I think we're slowly moving in the right direction.
Do you think we'll be over 60% by the end of this year, fully immunized?
I don't think so. I don't think we'll be over 60% all in all for the whole state, but I'm hopeful that we continue to gradually move in the right direction.
How has COVID-19 vaccine changed conversations about other vaccines with your patients? For example, two prevailing ideas is that the vaccine can't be trusted and could kill me, or taking the vaccine will make me infertile. Can you address those two issues?
Yeah, so what I find interesting is people are very familiar with flu shots, measles shots, and most people have no problem with those vaccines. And again, what's different about these vaccines are they are platforms or technologies that people have not heard of. The viral vector vaccine or the J&J vaccine, mRNA vaccines, those have been used in clinical trials for decades. As an infectious disease doctor, I can tell you they're not new technologies, but to the general public they are. So a lot of times people are thinking of them in a different silo. And another great example of people doing research. Yes, it is true. If you go online and look at the history of vaccines, many other vaccines take years or decades to come out before they're available. We are now in the year 2021. We have great technologies available. The way we do science today is very different than what it was decades ago. And it's because of that we have safe and effective vaccines.
Yeah, so pediatricians, we talk about vaccines every day. It's part of our preventative care for all of our patients. And so this vaccine has been a little bit different because I think the main reason behind that is that the information out there is, you aren't sure what to believe. So I have friends and family and families in my offices who ask me, what do I believe? They see opposite information about this particular vaccine that they haven't seen before on such a large scale with other vaccines, and they don't know who to believe. And so my advice to them is talk to your healthcare providers, talk to people you actually know. Don't believe someone you don't know on social media, but make sure you actually personally know that person and can trust them.
Should parents have any concern at all about giving their child the vaccine?
But any vaccine has a small amount of risk, and anything in medicine, medications, vaccine, anything that you put into your body has the potential to have a small amount of risk. I think we need to be transparent about that, but the risk is so small compared to the risk of what happens if you are infected with COVID-19, even for kids. Kids have a lower chance of having severe disease, but they do. 8,500 kids have been hospitalized, more than that at this point in this country from COVID-19. There's a syndrome called MIS-C that happens weeks later. And even though the risk is small, it is much, much greater than any risk associated with the vaccine. And I think that's, one of the big communication points that is really important to make sure everyone understands.
I think the immunization among children is a very big part of moving in the right direction. We still see classrooms being closed, schools changing their procedures because of high incidence of infection among younger children. So there is a fairly high incidence of infection among younger children, but they don't get severely ill, but they still can take the disease to their friends, to their families, to their parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles who could have very serious complications of the disease. So the vaccine among school-age children is going to really change the complexion of the pandemic, I think. And you asked about other vaccines. I find the people that are interested in vaccines for COVID have become more interested in their other preventive health vaccines. There are many people who, they want to be sure they're up to date on tetanus now, and they want to get the shingles shot. There's a lot of interest in other vaccines among the population of people who are interested in their preventive health overall. So I think that is encouraging.
Dr. Gastaldo, can you set the record straight? Is this vaccine a concern for women who want to get pregnant? Will it make them infertile?
Absolutely not. In December of 2020, we wanted to be very transparent with women who are pregnant. Women who are pregnant were not in the clinical trial. Physiologically or medically, there's really no reason to believe that the vaccines initially had an association with miscarriages or infertility. But we give other vaccines to pregnant women quite safely, and the immune response that these vaccines induce is the same as other vaccines. Now that we are in November of 2021, there is wonderful safety information on giving vaccines to pregnant women, nursing women, and women who are thinking about becoming pregnant. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, experts in women's health, strongly endorse that a woman who is pregnant receive these vaccines. So really, this initially came out based on misinformation that came from social media. And of course, if a woman is pregnant, her job is to be as healthy as she can and to have a healthy baby. And that mantra, the best thing to do is, if you are pregnant, to get vaccinated.
All of you spend a lot of time talking to patients individually about their concerns about the vaccine. What are some of the most common questions that people are asking, and how much time are you spending swatting away disinformation to try to convince people that the vaccines are safe? What are people coming to you with questions about, and what are you hearing from them?
I just want to tag on to what Joe Gastaldo said about pregnant women, because people talk about the risk of vaccine and they're concerned about the risk of vaccine in pregnancy. The risk of disease in pregnancy is much higher than it is in similar aged persons. So a woman who's in her 20s and 30s and gets COVID, the risk of serious complications is low. But if that woman is pregnant, the risks of serious complications to the mother are extremely high. It's just another reason why vaccine is so important in pregnancy. The issue of what do we discuss with patients about vaccine and how much time do we spend? We spend a lot of time, but I think that the unfortunate thing is that most individuals have already made up their mind about the vaccine, and they just want to engage in an argument. So personally, I don't spend as much time as I used to talking to people about vaccine. People have already made up their mind, and I try to spend more time counseling people who are interested in their preventive health.
Yeah, and I would agree. The conversations are either very, very short or they're very, very long. There's not a whole lot of middle ground because people have already made up their minds and don't want to discuss it. Or they have a lot of questions and concerns about how quickly it was brought to market, the trials, the safety, and those are things that I think we can talk about pretty clearly and confidently and answer those questions in a way that allows them to make the decision.
Have you ever been able to change someone's mind?
Yes, yeah, and it usually revolves around trust in your healthcare provider. That's usually what helps the most is, I know you, you know me, you trust me, and that's usually what helps to get that consent for the vaccine.
I mean, between the three of us, we've probably individually talked to so many people, and when you first talk to someone about the vaccines, it's really easy to tell if their questions are sincere and they need them addressed versus someone who already knows they're not going to be vaccinated, who wants to challenge you on some conspiracy thing. Determining that is quite easy to do. But if somebody really has questions that they need clarification on, I'm happy to sit down with them. And I've spent up to an hour, 90 minutes talking to people about vaccines. And it really is time consuming, but it's something that personally for me and for all of us has been quite gratifying to do if you could get through to one person. Because if somebody gets vaccinated, they share that experience, that story, and then that's going to hopefully influence other people to get vaccinated.
So we talked a little bit about the public trust with the medical community. There was a study done by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Harvard Chan School of Public Health, and this was a survey that was done in February in March of this year. Overall, the poll found that only 52% of Americans have a great deal of trust in the CDC. Health agencies were even lower at 37%. Americans said they had little trust in the National Institute of Health or the FDA. State health departments have a trust level of about 41%, and local health departments only did slightly better at 44%. If that trust is not there, people won't agree to change their lives. What do you think needs to change in terms of the perception that public health has with the population?
I think the general public needs to understand that public health experts are scientists. They are not politicians. They are people who have trained in understanding medicine and health, and they're interested in the health of the community. I think that people become confused that a government agency is made up of politicians, and it's really not. So that's the first hurdle that I would encourage people to think of public health individuals as scientists who are interested in their health.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, and I would just go one step further in that even if you don't trust those larger government agencies, you can still have that trust with your individual primary care provider or other providers, medical staff that you see. And I think that relationship is where it has to begin. This really is an individual decision and has to be built with trust at the individual relationship level. And I think that's how you get it. That's how you get past some of the politics that have been married to medicine in the past year and a half.
And I'll just piggyback on that too, just to give some clarity to what Mark was making statements on. People in healthcare, physicians, scientists, we are trained in doing this, and we have to be very transparent with people. What we have going on with COVID is it's going to be historical of importance, and we have to be transparent and let people know we are building the plane as we fly it, meaning that as new information comes out, as we learn more, things are going to change. And that can be confusing for the public to understand, but that's the fact of the matter. And we've never had this happen before in the history of our lives. And I hope it doesn't happen again, but we need to, unfortunately, let people know that historically, the CDC, the FDA, public health, They are apolitical. They are not elected officials. The way we review vaccines at the level of the FDA and the CDC within their vaccine subcommittees, those are not politicians. Those are the country's experts in those areas. And I listen in on those meetings. They're open to the public. They're completely transparent. When they review information in the clinical trials for vaccines, it's not a love fest. They ask a lot of detailed questions, and how people vote, their thought process is very transparent. Knowing that, I feel quite confident in the process that we have on how we get vaccines that are safe and effective for us to use.
Would you agree that your medical advice has in some way been hijacked by politics?
You know, I don't feel so much that medical advice is hijacked by politics. I think that medical advice is hijacked by social media. And there's been a lot of misinformation, and in some situations, politics has given permission to social media to spread misinformation. So that's how I would look at it.
I want to elaborate on it a little bit too. You know, unfortunately, within the scientific world and in the medical world with physicians, there are people who have alternative agendas. And it's very easy to go online and find somebody wearing a white coat who is a medical doctor or a PhD or have whatever credentials and make statements that are really counterproductive to what is happening. A great example of that is ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. There are still medical professionals on social media touting these miracle cures, these miracle drugs. And it's very easy for people to go on social media and believe that. And when they hear other people saying that ivermectin is not a recognized drug for treatment or prevention of COVID-19, it creates conflict in their mind. We have to acknowledge that and realize that's happening with people.
Is that part of the problem, that the public, that the medical community doesn't speak with one mouth, that you have messaging that's confusing? You have one group saying this and you have another group saying that, and no one's getting one mouthpiece saying one thing. Instead you have different people in different white coats saying different things. I
think for the established professional medical societies, the Infectious Disease Society of America, the American College of Physicians, the established medical societies have all been in unison with transparency and messaging. Unfortunately, throughout COVID, we've had these clubs pop up with alternative narratives regarding COVID-19. And for the general person on the street, these pop-up clubs come across as very legitimate.
Yeah, I think the medical community is pretty united in this. But you can always find somebody on social media that is then extrapolated to the larger medical community when that's just not the case. And you can always find someone who agrees with your point of view, and I think that is really challenging to make sure everyone has the correct information.
Yeah, I think there have been very few situations where there is actually confusion among established medical communities. I think the confusion comes from going online and searching for COVID and finding a lot of information pop up that's coming from non-medical communities.
Do you believe that mandating a vaccine is the only way we're going to get out of this? Or are we just going to have to continue to live with this and the spread will continue? Is that going to stop the spread?
Well, let me say one thing. This virus is not going away. We all have a date with this virus. I've been vaccinated. I got my booster. I have not yet had COVID-19. I'm going to get it someday. We need to learn to live safely with this virus. The way to learn to live safely with this virus is through immunity. The safest way to get that is through vaccines. Those are the safest tools we have. We're going to have other tools on the horizon very soon, oral antiviral medications. So things are getting better, but we all need to realize this virus is not going away, and how you choose to live safely with it is really going to be, for some people, a matter of life and death.
Yeah, the more people who are vaccinated, the closer we get to keeping this at as low a level as possible. Whether that means mandating vaccines, I don't know if that's something that is really for us to say, but the key message is the more people who are vaccinated, the the better we are as a community to keep this at the levels we need it to be at.
I think more vaccine mandates can only help. I think that it makes good sense that healthcare workers should all be vaccinated against COVID because they deal with populations that are at risk. And I think there are many other situations where it would be very important to have vaccines mandated.
You know, and healthcare, vaccine requirements in our country are not new. In 1777, George Washington required his troops to get inoculations against smallpox. We have vaccine requirements for children. And in healthcare, we have vaccine requirements. It's what we signed up for going into healthcare. We have vaccine requirements for hepatitis, influenza. So that's not a foreign concept to have vaccine requirements. It's just a matter of having frank discussions with people about why it's so important to get a COVID-19 vaccine.
Lastly, I'll just leave each of you for a last thought. If you could speak directly to our viewers who are on the fence about whether to get a vaccine or not, what would be the message each of you would give them?
I'll start off. So, you know, getting vaccinated is an act of selflessness and kindness for your family, your community. We want people to really get the information they need from a trusted resource who really has their credentials that can talk with you from a vantage point of caring and understanding.
Yeah, the vaccines are very safe and very effective. Although no vaccine is 100% perfect. There are a lot of benefits to vaccinating yourself. You protect yourself, you protect those around you. For children, it keeps you in school more. We know how important that is to long-term development. And I think that's part of the message that pediatricians are talking about is there's more than just the direct benefits of the vaccine. There's those indirect benefits as well to getting back to normal as a society.
I've seen well over 1,000 people in the hospital with COVID infection, and I've seen dozens of people die. None of them wanted to have COVID, and none of the people who died wanted to die from COVID. And it's a preventable disease. So it's just important for people to realize getting the vaccine not only protects them, but it protects their families, it protects their communities, their schools, their churches. These are all places where we want to be able to go and feel safe and healthy.
Thank you guys very much.